What is up, everybody? Hoang Zero here, and today we are doing a BT13 tier list revision. This is coming off an additional 2 weeks of testing with some new events that we've had. It was specifically the BT13 Oceania regionals, as well as the PPG regionals we've just had. Joining me today is not Zero, but actually two very great players. We have Mr. Vincent Hayes, aka the Mastemon Coper himself, as well as Joey. If you guys want to introduce yourself.
It's me, Joey, Alphamon main, and yeah, glad to be here.
It's I go by Hayes online. Mostly play purple and yellow.
Yeah, and so these two players, they've done a lot of BT13 testing, and I think there's a lot to talk about, especially with all these results we've had. We had the top 16 from PPG, where Belfemon did end up taking the event. We also have some of the matchup demographics as well, statistics, I guess, but really, getting straight into the things, MirageGaogamon is probably the most disappointing deck we've had in the event, right? MirageGaogamon had two top 16 appearances, or no, actually two top 8 appearances in Oceania. However, it failed to make top 16 at all in the North American PPG event. So I guess the question now is, why do we think MirageGaogamon, failed? If any of you guys want to take the lead on that one first.
I think it's a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Having a way that having a win condition that can be actively counterplayed against by your opponent is just kind of hard neg,
Yeah.
and the deck just kind of dies without tamers. It does stuff, but it's just not very impressive. It doesn't kill very impressively. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't control the board very impressively. It doesn't even hand loop very impressively. It can do all of these things, but just does none of them very well while being not very consistent. So it's just made the deck kind of feel lackluster in a lot of sense,
Mm-hmm.
um, at least for me.
Okay, and Vincent, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to like Shine's like power curve, but without any of the tempo that Shine can provide.
Mm-hmm.
Like Shine can
Mhm.
play on board and be super fast because of cheap evos and then Marcus gaining a memory. And
Yeah.
free evos on top of that, so they can play for tempo incredibly well. While Mirage, to reach their win condition, they don't have that same amount of like tools that they can use to play for that tempo. So they end up being a lot slower. On top of relying on your opponent to have, um, like within the threshold of 8 cards in hand, which several decks can play around.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so adding on to that, another thing that I do want to mention is the matchup spread for Mirage actually isn't super stellar, right? If you look at it across the board, well, number one, Royal Knights is not a good matchup. We acknowledge Royal Knights is not a good matchup because you have things like Crania, you have things like Alphamon, and then if you're not, beating them by turn 4, then they're going to go into Omnimon and just curve you out. But
Hmm.
and then Royal Knights had a very impressive showing at this first online event, which we'll talk about it more in detail when we get along to it. But Royal Knights it was the fourth most represented deck in this entire format. I mean, this entire event rather. So really, really good showing for that, and I think they had a bit of a reason, part of the reason why MirageGaogamon kind of faltered a little bit, but also Belfemon is a very interesting discussion point. MirageGaogamon in the event had it was a 80% win rate or something along those lines against Belfemon. However, in our own personal testing, Belfemon has been pretty confidently beating MirageGaogamon, and I think this might just be an adaptation into the way you play the matchup, right? It playing for like early as possible Karada and just playing to forcibly neg your hand as much as possible. So I think at this time, a lot of Belfemon players will falter to Mirage, but as we progress throughout the format, I think Belfemon players will start to edge out a little bit more in this matchup. But that being said, I don't know about you guys feel any the same or any bit differently, but BT13 to me feels very reminiscent of BT8, where there's so many viable
Yes.
decks where it's almost impossible to actually make an accurate prediction of what you're going to face or what's going to end up topping, right? Because BT8, I mean, you had the hybrids, you have Imperial, you have Maste, Setcon, Bellstar, or you really just had everything, right? Armors.
Hmm.
It was almost impossible to accurately predict what was going to happen. I feel like BT13 falls in the same vein. If you look at this top 16 spread, I mean, this is pretty diverse, right? Belfemon, not Belfemon, but Hunters, Yiggy, and ShineGreymon had the most representation in top 16, both at 3 each. And then, the rest of the top 16, so the remaining what is that? The remaining 7 decks were all pretty unique and diverse. So I would definitely say that in my opinion, I think Mirage is high tier 2. Or B tier in this case, I suppose, specifically because its matchup spread is not really good, and like Vincent said, the way it curves out and the way that it plays for board isn't as great as Shine. Like, yes, you're arguably like the OTK deck of the format, and yes, you require the same amount of pieces as Shine for the same kill turn, but the difference coming in how you play onto the board in of itself. So, anything you guys want to add to Mirage?
No. Blue Dog sucks.
True. Okay, and then coming up next, we do have Blue Flare. Joey, I know you're a huge Blue Flare advocate. If you want to take this one.
Yes, sir. This deck is Jesus. So yeah, Blue Flare has just oddly positioned itself into a really great spot. Partially because of the way the developers are designing the game, where you're just putting more cards on board in order to have more consistency. So against Shine, I say it's Shine favored, but good Shine has to build on board. So therefore, you can realistically win and steal a lot of games against a matchup that would be kind of hard because Shine just can't build in Raising very well. There's also Royal Knights, which you just love. It's easy to farm. And Belfemon, which if these are three of the top decks, Blue Flare is just in a great spot because Sorai just turns off most of these decks. You can stun the Rage Mode stack infinitely so long as you get a Mailbird and just keep chipping. And you just put them in an awkward spot where so long as you don't really fumble into a Psychmon, you could just farm them. It's like you go the whole game with no stress, and it's a really great time. So where Blue Flare struggles is into a lot of random single stack matchups, like BlackWarg. It can struggle into Alpha. It can struggle into Hunters. So it's probably not good enough to be top of tier 1, but considering it's spread into the current meta, it's really, really good and a really consistent pick to take if you want to play a blue deck, in my opinion.
Okay, and then Vincent, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think the deck's really good. Like for sure, in my opinion, like A tier good. It's Belfemon matchup, which I have tested. It feels like a good bit Blue Flare favored. A couple factors can influence that depending on the amount of Psychmons people play and the amount of Cyber Launchers in each, like Cyber Launcher versus Psychmon ratio. But I think overall it is Blue Flare favored, and given how good Belfemon might be, I think it's a pretty good deck.
Yeah, and me personally, my perception of this deck actually changed drastically. At the EX4 regionals over at Fort Worth, where Blue Flare was one of the most popular decks, and it performed exceptionally well. It was my only loss during the entire event. Granted, he was on the Cross 7 Superior Mode, Kaiser Nail, no cheese. And
the truth.
I had no out to it. But, that being said, definitely really underestimated just how powerful this deck is, because historically Blue Flare hasn't been a good deck, right? Like every time it gets support, every time it gets hyped up, it always flops on itself. But I think this is finally, now with its EX4 support, I think it's finally the era of Blue Flare. But that being said, Blue Flare is kind of matchup dependent in a sense, where like you have decks like ShineGreymon where like it doesn't matter what ShineGreymon plays into, right? It has its game plan, it has its win con, it'll get there eventually, right? But with Blue Flare, I think it, like, if you pair into certain matchups, like you said, Joey, like if you pair into Alphamon or you pair into BloomLord, it's so much more difficult to win those matchups, right? And so I think because you're so volatile in that sense of the matter, I think it's I think it's A tier, but not necessarily S tier. S tier, I feel like is reserved for the decks where like if you take it, it doesn't matter what you play into, you can you beat them down senselessly, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like a really consistent deck with a incredible high roll.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, some games even against your bad matchups, especially if you've seen me on the live stream, you just lose. You just lose, and it's like, bro, they just had the set Greymon, and they just had it all early, and it's GG's. It doesn't matter if it's favored. So.
If you guys don't know, Joey is the person at Nationals who got turned 2'd by Blue Flare, with the Sec plus Greymon and the Metal Greymon X. That was unfortunate to watch.
Some people are Jesus, man, and you just can't do anything about
it. All right, and then Jesmon. Jesmon, in theory, is really good into Shine, and it's really, in theory, good into Mirage. But the issue is curving out. It's not realistic for you to curve out consistently across the 9 rounds, and if you don't curve out, this deck has very little ways to stabilize afterward. Not only that, but even when you do see the curve, sometimes you still get beaten senselessly. Into decks like Belfemon, for example, they just wipe your entire board, the sleep mode stops your swing, so you have to double swing, but it's really hard to double swing, and a lot has to go right. If you don't see Gankumon, Shine folds you. And then Ruin mode also persists past the Gankumon thing, so you're still losing like majority of your board. A lot of things just kind of just go wrong, in my opinion, with Jesmon, unfortunately, and it sucks because I really love this deck, but it's definitely not a great deck this format. But if you want to beat BlackWarg, then by all means.
Yeah, this deck just fumbles into itself. I definitely think it's C-tier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What about Vincent? Do you have anything you want to add to Jesmon?
Yeah, I think it's got a really great ceiling, just has trouble getting there. That's basically the issue.
Yeah, and then ShineGreymon. ShineGreymon is a deck that I feel like there's a lot of controversy behind it because it was the best deck in the format for Japanese BT13, and it is the most represented deck in the English format at the current moment. It had like it had 40% or 44% of the entire player pool at the PPG event. But despite that, its conversion rate was terrible. It was a very, very bad conversion rate despite that. And only did it make top 8? Let me check. Did it make top 8? It made Ryan made top 8 and Michael made top 8. Yes. So it did have 2 appearances in top 8, but nonetheless, it still has not it did not win this event, nor did it win the OC. Oh no, it did win the Oceania event. That's a lie. It did win the Oceania event, right? So I think ShineGreymon, it's in testing, when we originally tested it, what it kind of lacked, it felt like, was it was a 5 damage combo. It wasn't killing consistently, and then you just clap back, right? But I think with these new adaptations to builds, especially, we're seeing a lot more memory boost in these builds to increase the consistency. I think as we've increased the floor for the ShineGreymon deck, the ceiling is already so high to like make up for the you swapping in those pieces. I think the deck is truly an S tier deck. I think no matter what matchup you play into, the ShineGreymon will find its way to just smack the hell out of you, right? I know, Joey, you've played a lot of BlackWarGreymon. BlackWarGreymon is one of those decks that on paper is really, really good into ShineGreymon. You have anti-DP, you have Tamer Pop, but you want to go a little bit more into detail about that matchup dynamic?
Oh, yeah. So I played 7 Shines on Saturday, and I did pretty good overall. I went 6-1 into Shine. But it's just a lot of the games went to game 3, and man, sometimes they're just Jesus, man. It's like your deck can be built to completely counter it, but you hit a Marcus in security, they just get really good curve and see their tamers, and it's just like GG. And having that type of deck, yes, it's not maybe consistent enough to perform all 9 rounds. It is strong enough to beat everything. It does not care about any game plans. It does not care about what you're trying to do. It can literally just beat everything and play around everything. It can even play around BlackWarg just by putting their tamers in security.
Yeah.
It's literally just has an answer for everything. I think it's undeniably the best deck in the format. I get it may have some consistency issues. We also just have a really good spread this format.
Yes.
But I understand why it dominated Japan so heavily. It is just, some people are just Jesus, and you're like, bro, like I could have played the perfect game. I still would have lost this game. Like, there's just nothing I could do. You hit one Marcus in security, it's almost definitely over. It's such a nerve-wracking matchup to kind of try to out-tempo and outplay.
And before I pass this over to Vincent really quick, I did want to interject real quick. You brought up a really good point that the matchup spread in this format is so diverse and it's so dynamic. ShineGreymon does well into almost everything. It has probably some of the best matchup spreads, and so into a wide format like this, ShineGreymon, exceeding performance, it makes sense, right? Like, you would take the deck that does well into almost everything,
Yeah.
And this kind of ties me back to MirageGaogamon, where MirageGaogamon it has a similar ceiling to Shine, but it's that floor, right? And that's like where the big difference comes in. But it's also the difference in matchup spreads, right? ShineGreymon, the matchup spread, yes, you're a 5 damage combo deck instead of Mirage's 6 damage combo, but you're much more consistent across the board in all these different matchups. Mirage, if you run into a bad matchup, you're probably like donezoed. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the run, right? So I think that's kind of the discrepancy between why Shine is an S tier deck and why Mirage feels like a B tier deck. Vincent, I know Vincent has been the person playing Shine the most recently within our own little testing group. Vincent, do you have any thoughts do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think it is the best deck. But I don't think it's like a huge margin, like for example, Beels and BT12 compared to every other deck in the format.
Yes.
But I think so the only thing holding it back, like from being that like Beelz level threat is the consistency, where
Yeah.
Beelz is a lot more consistent than Shine
Mhm.
is right now. But the thing is, like even into its theoretically unfavored matchups, Shine can just high roll its way into a win. In
Yeah.
those, like, it doesn't matter what your game plan is if you're dead in turn 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and that has happened multiple times in testing,
Yeah.
where like you if you like, for example, if Greymon sees the stack to go and protect DP minus, but they still have to see that stack and evo up the traditional way or play tamers, mostly
Mhm.
the traditional way outside of the Greymon, whereas Shine does all of that for free and is able to out tempo so much harder by
Yeah.
curving out.
Yeah. Okay. And then moving on, we do have Alphamon. Joey, you want to lead us on this one?
Alphamon is really interesting this format. BT13 Alpha is way better than I thought. But it's still in an awkward position this format, I think. I don't think it could. I would put it maybe very bottom A tier, maybe top of B tier.
Mhm.
It can be. I think the development of Zugabon is a really good tech for the deck and makes it where we can actually put people in situations where they're just at
Mhm.
0 and they can't do anything. But we're so much more susceptible to just removal without. Is it BT7 Doru?
Correct.
And even
Yes.
though we have a good Shine matchup, we have Belf is a bit of a staring contest. Other decks just kind of demand some respect, and it can be kind of slow. So,
So
um,
question, right? You said that this deck lacks protection, but we did receive,
mhm,
new form of protection in the form of BT13 Alphamon. Is that
yeah,
not enough in for this situation?
not exactly because um, BT13 Alphamon isn't Oryukin,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of the deck still wants to go into Oryukin and wants to do Oryukin things because Oryukin can give you upwards to 6 memories
Mm-hmm.
and give you another turn to allow you to build another stack to put your opponent in an unwinnable position. But because sometimes we need the protection in order to do that, we have to forego our Oryukin and just stay on BT13,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine because we keep a body on board, but the body doesn't do any removal. It doesn't affect the opponent's board at all. It just keeps their 6s from attacking.
Mm-hmm.
So its lack of interaction with the opponent leaves it in a kind of dead in the water spot, and it's only good for that turn. So after that turn, your opponent can easily just clap you on the next turn if they can just stun your stack, remove your stack to DP minus,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, a Belfemon and just stop you from killing them. So it's kind of weird. It can win these matchups, but I think it's definitely a little hard.
Okay. And then Vincent, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good into Shine, and I just think uh, the one thing that could keep it from just being better is just kind of it can be slow to open. It has so much
Mm-hmm.
searchers, but it's forced to run these like slimmer ratios,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah,
can be slow. And the Belf matchup is definitely a staring contest, in
yeah,
which the Belf probably wins because of its board
yeah,
expansion.
Yeah, and
yep.
so I feel like the thing that holds Alphamon back the most is going to be that damage, right?
Hmm.
Zubagon Punch was a really great adaptation, try and compensate for the lack of Doru Greymon. Yeah, if you hit the one, I'm like, congratulations, whoop de fucking do.
Yeah,
But you're not always gonna see it. You're not always gonna open Sunarizamon, which is unsearchable. Um,
yeah.
so while Zubagon Punch is a
Well,
really great adaptation, I would say that until we get training boosts, especially, I feel like on average you're probably going to be lacking in that damage department. So I feel like this is a high B tier deck. Um, I guess my question now is it better than Mirage? Right.
I mean, personally, the Alpha Boy definitely thinks so, but
Okay. I
that's
mean,
just
yeah,
me.
you're
No
you're
bias,
biased. Yeah.
no bias, no
Yeah,
bias.
no bias, no bias. But what about you, Vincent? Do you think this is a better deck than Mirage?
I think in terms of power, it is better than Mirage, but I think
Mm-hmm.
Mirage will, over the course of a format, see
Yeah.
more results than Alpha
Yeah.
because of popularity.
Fair. Okay. And then next deck is the winner of the PPG regional, Belfemon. Belfemon is a deck. It's good. This is a weird one.
Hmm.
This is a very weird one, right? Because
Yeah,
it performed very well in Japan. But going into the English format, we expected Mirage to have a lot of popularity because Blue Dog, NA loves blue, right? And then if you look at the matchup spread, where is it? You see MirageGaogamon right here has a 73% win rate into Belfemon. So you're like, okay, well surely MirageGaogamon gates Belfemon, right? Well, the thing that we encountered is number one, your matchup spread across the board is just. Or I'm talking about Mirage. Okay, whoops. I got sidetracked.
The true blue boy.
In testing, when Vincent was piloting a Belf and when Tessero was piloting Belf, the matchup was very Belf favored. It was very, very Belf favored because Belfemon was able to just forcibly, like, never hit 8. They could always go to 6, discard 2 during the turn. So they'll never let you hand loop. You're always down damage. And if they see Karada early enough, they're always going to be popping your stack. It was just very hard to play the game. And I talked to George, the winner himself for PBG's regional, and he said this is a matchup that is it can go either way. It's 50-50 in his opinion. Because either Belfemon hits combo turn 3 and that's it, like the game is over, or they don't see combo and Mirage is probably going to kill them before they're able to stabilize. But in testing, Tessero, I think, went 8-0 in that matchup. Vincent was farming everyone. He farmed like 3 different MirageGaogamon players. So I think going forward, I think the average Mirage versus Belf matchup, it will probably be Mirage favored. But, into more experienced Belfemon players that know the matchup dynamic, I think it will end up leaning towards Belfemon's favor. What do you guys think?
I mean, there's also the fact that I think Belfa is just better into the meta than Mirage.
Agreed.
And so even if that matchup is true, Belfa into everything else, where Mirage into everything else, Belfa is just better.
Yeah.
Belfa, like, I had to go into the tournament because we discovered Belf kind of last minute. I don't like testing in the purple.
Yeah.
It like BlackWarg and the Belf is like doomed. Like there's nothing I can do. It's actually just like I can probably tech some things, but even then it's still going to be Belf favored, and I just have to hold that. Which in terms of popularity and player consistency, you're not going to face George or Tessero or Hayes every round in terms of Belf players, but a good Belf player can beat a lot of decks, and so I think with that, just being able to completely invalidate a lot of single stack decks is going to be really good. And any deck that goes late game is favored. Belf is favored into, which is why it beat Royal Knights, because usually Royal Knights is like, oh, I love the late game, but Belf is the one deck that says, no, I love this late game more.
Well,
like,
even that, like into Royal Knights, you have Psychmon to deny them all of their cost reduction. You have Karada to constantly pop their stacks. That matchup is just rough. Like, it's just bad.
Yeah.
Vincent, I know you tested a lot of Belf. How did you feel about this deck?
Yeah, I think it is a really good deck. I think it is probably one of the more like it's a really consistent deck, and if you know like your lines really well, and like just like how to play to like see as many cards as possible, you will do really well with this deck. I think the thing that people can do to salvage their Mirage matchup is keeping in mind how many cards they think the Mirage can make you draw on the next turn and being under that threshold, which you can do very easily. And always discarding 2 on their first swing, because then it makes it hard for them to because then otherwise they can not swing for the rest of their turn and then force you to just keep your hand size up. So yeah, I think the matchup is at least 55-45 Bell favored because of your board control being so powerful as Belf. You're most likely going to be staring at the Mirage while the Mirage stares back at you, but you are clearing your board while doing that. Their board while doing that. The only issue I think with the deck is Shine can just blow you out before you see your sleep mode, and that sucks. But it's a winnable matchup regardless. Like if you play well and they don't like see the absolute nuts, it's a winnable matchup. And everything else other than I guess Blue Flare, you're super chilling.
Okay, so question, right? I think we all agree it's at minimum A tier, right? This is a very good deck. This is arguably the second best deck in the format. Is it S tier? Is it ShineGreymon tier though? That's my question to you guys. Because like in terms of
my immediate answer would be yes.
Okay.
Blue Flare people would just have to play Blue Flare in order for this deck to become completely invalidated. because I legit think that's probably
Like
its worst matchup.
Yeah.
Which I think Blue Flare into the field is much worse than Belf into the field.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
it's its only mechanically disadvantageous matchup.
Yeah.
I guess.
Otherwise, it's Shine, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like Shine matchup is a matter of speed versus like there's no mechanical like issue with like the
Yeah.
Shine matchup, whereas Blue Flare is able to stun that sleep mode.
Mhm.
So
That being said, one of the biggest strengths for this is I think most decks are just unable to actually beat sleep mode, and so going into such a wide and diverse meta, being like just like kind of the same vein as Shine, having that coverage against everything makes you a really powerful deck. So I think as long as you don't run into Blue Flare, I think that's an S tier deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, S for
I think so,
Shine,
too.
S for Sleep.
Yeah.
true,
So
true.
I got to get going.
Yeah.
But one last thing: if you Mirage players want to beat Belf, you just need to run evade.
Actually, really quickly, Joey, if
Evade guy.
we can bump up BlackWarg if you just want to give us a 5 minute spiel, or just like do a little spiel about this deck really quickly.
Okay. So BlackWarg. Here, let me sit down then.
Okay.
So as a resident BlackWarg lover, I love this deck. I think it's the most fun deck to build this format. Its biggest issues are BlackWarg can probably beat everything in the format, but it can't build for everything in the format. And so you either lose to yourself, randomly lose to Secon, randomly lose to Belfemon. I've heard that Royal Knights is a really hard matchup, but I haven't gotten to test that, so I won't speak on that. But BlackWarg is the type of deck that, because Tamers are so relevant, because it's relatively consistent. It has a lot of answers and a lot of tools in its toolkit. It's relevant, and it's going to continue to be relevant. I faced 7 shines, and I felt great about most of my matchups, unless I got high rolled or I bricked. In the game I lost, I bricked and got high rolled. So, my overall averages felt really good into the best deck in the format. Belfast sucks, and so I can't do anything about that without upping my raid ward, which then poses other issues for other matchups. And so that's just kind of the constant battle. So with that, I'd probably say that BlackWarg is A tier, and maybe on the lower side, because it can't deal with these decks that have a really good late game, and have ways that you just can't interact with them. So that's my spiel. Gotta get back to work.
Yeah,
but thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, and Vincent, do you feel any differently about BlackWarg?
I agree with that.
Okay, perfect. And so I definitely do agree with that. Like, it has all the tools. It has all the tools in the toolbox, but it has to get the right tool for the right job. And so because of that, you will run into like these consistency issues and deck building issues, just across the board. And Shine, yeah, you're favored in Shine, but sometimes Shine just rolls you. You're not favored in a Belf. Blue Flare, I think, kind of just depends on how much Tamer hate you see at times. All right, you also do have the redirects that might influence things as well, and then Royal Knights, to my knowledge, after speaking with a couple of people, they just, if you don't curve out perfectly, they're just gonna omni-turn you like sooner than you can answer. You can't deal with that. But moving forward, Gallantmon. I put Gallantmon in tier 2 last tier list only because mostly as a joke with 0, but in reality this is like a tier 3 deck. It's not very good. It really didn't get. Okay, that's a lie. That's a whole lie. It got a whole new wave of support in EX4. It got a whole new secret rare, and it still does nothing. This deck is doomed. I don't know what this deck needs to be good, but it just there is no hope for Gallantmon. Anything you want to add there, Vincent?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, perfect. But now we have Millith Loop. This is a deck that was popularized by Tessero, and I didn't have a lot of experience going into this matchup or going into this deck until over the Fort Worth regionals weekend, where I had a fair amount of practice into it, and I realized this deck is actually insanely annoying. Like, it's actually really, really annoying. If you don't close out the game soon enough, this deck will just run the clock on you, and there's just no way you can deal with it. They run like 12 different memory boosts. They gain like 18 memory in a single turn. Like, it's so obnoxious how annoying this deck is. Into faster decks like Shine, I can definitely see you struggling just because you're on the clock so much faster. Into decks like Mirage, you could probably struggle. But into slower decks like, say, Belfemon, for example, or slower decks like MirageGaogamon, or just really anything that doesn't put you on a timer, I think Millith Loop is actually very, very excellent. So I would say like somewhere like within mid B tier, but what do you think, Vincent?
Yeah, I think somewhere around mid B tier is correct. Its main issue is that like, I was testing this matchup with Ying,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise known as Human.
Yeah.
I was playing Shine and he was playing Millith Loop, and it was not going well for him because like the space that Shine plays at and the tempo, it was just not like he just could never get to the mill loop part of the
Yeah.
deck. But into most of the other things, I think you're mostly fine. But having such a bad matchup into the best deck with the format is puts it in a tough position.
Right. Okay. And then we do have Mastemon. Mastemon is something we put at the tail end of B tier because we wanted to cope with the fact that you had Kintourismon, you had Ruin Mode, you have Kuda, you got something else, but you had like a bunch of new tools. Vincent, you are the Mastemon enthusiast. What do you think?
I think it's C tier,
Mm-hmm.
because you get a bunch of new tools, but you don't have this uh, like the thing that really closes it all together, puts it all
The
together quite
Patamon.
yet. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Patamon. Um, but because of that, and also the format is fairly fast. I think Shine is just too fast for the control tempo that you can play, which is a pretty big issue. Um, but I think aside from like your abysmal Shine matchup and your probably abysmal Belfa matchup, like everything below that's not that bad. It's just like, but I don't think it's like just quite there this format.
Yeah. Okay, and then we do have Hunters. Hunters had only 12 players total in the entire PPG regionals, but it still had the same amount of tops as both Royal Knights and ShineGreymon at 3. Hunter's conversion rate was absolutely insane, and it's a deck that performed very sleeper well in Japan. Wasn't played a whole ton, but it won 6 different majors in Japan, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, so Hunters is actually a very exceptional deck. It does well into almost every single deck in the format except like Sleep Mode. Into Belfemon, you kind of just like sit there and you scream a little bit inside your head because there's really no counterplay to that. But other than that, you do well. You do fine into Shine. You do well into Mirage. You do fine into Blue Flare. Yeah, BlackWarGreymon. You can definitely play around that for sure. Just across the board, I think Hunters, the only matchup that you really just like want to scream into the abyss, it probably is Belfemon, right?
Yeah. So I've watched Nobu and
Mm-hmm.
Tessero play this matchup a little bit. Nobu was able to sneak some wins away just by out tempoing and being faster to the kill turn.
Yeah.
But if you that's really your only win condition because you're a deck that um doesn't swing a bunch but rather swings like once or twice per turn for a big amount of checks using Watchmaker,
Yeah.
which Belfa is extremely good at dealing with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you can't interact with the sleep mode. It's a pretty doomed matchup, but
Yeah.
I think it is really good because like as you were saying, it had 6 majors it won 6 majors in Japan with having and was one of the least represented but played decks in Japan. And we're having a similar thing happen here where it's doing really well in event with a really small play rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the question then is it a better deck than Blue Flare? Because let's be honest, it's I think as long as Belfemon is in the format, I think, and if Belfemon sees a lot of more play, which I'd argue that Hunters is an S tier deck, but with George winning the event with Belfemon, I can expect a lot of Belfemon to see popularity rise, and as a result, that will indirectly make Hunters a worse deck. So the question is Hunters an S tier deck or is it Hunters an A tier deck? And if it is A tier deck, is it the best A tier deck? Right?
I think you can't really go wrong with either placement. I think
Mm-hmm.
bottom of S or top of A is fine, but I think it's um I personally I think it's the bottom of S because
Mm-hmm.
the Belfemon has a couple properties to it that make it maybe not as appealing as like for
Mm-hmm.
example Shine
Okay.
because Belfemon contains in a single game of Belfemon you have to make a tremendous amount of micro decisions because of the sheer amount of draw and discards that you have to do.
Right.
So it can be particularly like exhausting to play over the course of a long tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So I because of this, I think while Belfamon representation will go up, I don't think it will go up to the level of like Shine.
Right. And that makes total sense. So we have S tier for Shine, S tier for Sleep, S tier for Superior. Really, really, just anything with an S in it is good. Um, but
True.
actual facts, spit and fire. So now we have Ulforce. Ulforce is a deck that I think everyone kind of just wrote off, except for like the hardcore Ulforce copers, and then it got 12th at the PPG regional, which I want to write personally. I want to write it off as like this is a good player that managed to take the deck, and just like overall, it won't see any further success than this. Because like I mean, if you pair into Quartzmon, you're done. If you pair into anything like you pair into Shine with all its DP minus, you're kind of doomed. Hunters, oh, you're doomed. Like I don't know. I don't know how Ulforce players do it time and time again. Like I don't understand. I feel like Quartzmon being such a powerful card in this format, like we've even seen BlackWarGreymon decks play Quartzmon, right? It's not common, but it's like we've seen it here and there. And your blue flare matchup, it can be kind of dicey at times. Like I don't know. I genuinely don't know how I feel about Ulforce. What do you think?
I think it's probably B tier. I think like the Ulforce has like some very dedicated copers, and they're like probably really good at the deck that they can occasionally take it to like a top finish.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think the deck is fairly mid.
All right, so I'll compromise, meet you in the middle here, because I do agree. I think a good Ulforce player keeps surprising people, but across the board, on average, it probably won't do very well. So, like, top of C, fair,
Yeah,
valid.
it's either bottom of B or top of C.
I'll give it top of C. I'll give it top of C. And then we do have Security Control. Security Control is a deck that's a very interesting position because it hasn't performed at all in any of these last two regionals. I don't really know what the conversion rate on it is, actually. But Security Control does have a couple of good matchups going in for it, and it did receive some new support in the form of Icy Breath as well as Gallantmon. So, in ShineGreymon, if you're able to nuke, if they swing the Marcus, prior to the burst mode burn, and they swing Marcus and they hit, say, Degradation, they kill the ShineGreymon stock, then you just lose all tempo. Into Mirage, you lose all tempo. Into even Sleep mode, right? The moment they go for the Rage mode turn, they swing out, they hit something, a bomb, it blows up the Rage mode, and like they're just behind on so much tempo, right? And they're forcing the BlackWarGreymon deck to play the Yuya when Yuya is terrible into almost every single other matchup. So I think, in the grand scheme of things, I actually think Secon is pretty good, right?
I think it's pretty decent.
Yeah.
I would say that what holding it back is probably hunters. Like any hunters who knows how to play that matchup will absolutely destroy 100%, Security Control.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if they have any type of experience in that deck, it's not even close. I think it's mostly the element of surprise when it comes to SecCon, like because none of the decks in the format are really like preparing for it.
Yeah.
For example, I think it can probably beat Shine on average. The only issue with that matchup is that you can't really interact with the Marcuses. You can only interact with the main stack.
Yeah.
And so you can be put into positions where, let's say you're at 1 or 2 security, and you can't do anything about the Marcuses that are about to come out and slap you, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you can say they have an auto-winning matchup into Shine. Maybe your favorite,
for sure.
But it'll be. And also into Sleep mode, I think while you can sack the Rage mode wasn't swinging into security, not being able to touch the Sleep mode at all during your turn is definitely another con for the deck, because it can then spawn a body at the end of your turn, which you also cannot interact with. And the Gizmons being able to float can be quite problematic for you as well. I think the Belfemon matchup is probably a bit worse than the ShineGreymon matchup, just because of how many floaters and interactables you have to deal with.
Okay.
But yeah, I think against like the below anything below S tier, you should have a pretty good matchup into, aside from like maybe Blue Flare.
Blue Flare is a really bad one. Yeah, Blue Flare will fold you on like really badly on average.
Millith Loop.
Yeah, Millith Loop too. So like okay, so I think it's a B tier deck. I think it's a reasonably B tier deck. It's not a high B tier deck. So my question is it better than BLs or worse than BLs?
Well, you get smoked on the head to head, but I don't know. It's probably. I don't know who. The thing is, I think Beals is probably under, as Tessera was saying earlier.
It's underrated a little bit.
Yeah, it's underrated, underexplored. It's probably I think it's probably around Beals' level.
Yeah. Okay, that's totally fair. And then we do have Royal Knights. Royal Knights is a deck that I genuinely didn't think would have a lot of play rate this first event, because like the price barrier is kind of real, right? Like you need 4 Omnimons, you need like 2 to 3 Gallantmons on average, right, for most players. So that's this is probably one of the more expensive Digimon decks we currently have. And I genuinely didn't think people would buy into it. Lo and behold, it was the 4th most represented deck. So my bad, I got the prediction wrong. That being said, it also had a 3 tops in top 16, so same as Hunters and ShineGreymon. But I think there's a couple of things that will end up happening to this deck that will make it kind of iffy going forward. Number one, I think your ShineGreymon matchup, I know a lot of people say it's like 50-50, but on average, I do feel like it leans towards ShineGreymon. Your Belfemon matchup is really rough. It's very bad. I think we even have the data to support that, right? Let me see here. So Belfemon had a 60% win rate going into Royal Knights, and with Belfemon's popularity only inevitably rising soon, or sooner than later, I think that will hurt you a lot. And Hunters is also very rough for Yigi. The jamming, the being able to just chip and then save, and just a lot of other... Like, you'd imagine with Superior Mode, not being able to tuck things for free as easily, it'd be a lot worse off for them, but really they're just getting off too much chip and there's so much tempo for no reason. And then Blue Flare is also like this really awkward matchup. So I think it's a deck that'll perform really well in these earlier events, but as people play anything but Shine, and as people learn how to read cards, because again this is a reading gap deck, I would say. I think Royal Knights will fall off more and more, but towards the earlier start of this format, I think it'll do pretty well, which kind of mimics Japan in a sense, because the Japanese format, Royal Knights started off really, really strong, and then towards the tail end of the format, it started to falter more and more, right? You want to add anything to that, Vincent?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, in fact, in the first, I guess, like 2-3 weeks of the format, it's probably a solid, like, mid or top 8 of A tier deck. But the thing is that it really does have a lot of cards that you have to actually read, because all of its cards do something, and it's not like you can just read the level 6 and call it a day, right? You have to know the thresholds you're playing around. You have to know the cards that you're playing around, like Crania, Alpha, and Jesmon, especially Jesmon. Don't just play and let your board get nuked for free by Jesmon. So I think at the start it'll do really well, and it'll probably fall off as the format goes, especially if Belf gets more popular, because that matchup is a is a keck right there.
That is actual like keck W, dude. Like, it's so
yeah,
bad.
right. Karada, pop your thing so you can't tuck, and then Psychmon can float
you
infinitely.
pop the Psychmon and they loop it back with Astamon, and like you're just screaming inside a little bit. Yeah, it's bad.
We could actually see that in real time in the PPG stream, too.
Yeah, that was rough. That was really rough. Okay, so my question is, do you think this is... I think going forward, it ends up being a B tier deck. Going forward. Like, you could say based, purely off the results we had of this most recent regional, it's an A tier deck. But I think as the format progresses, I think it'll eventually settle into the B tier. But my question then becomes like, where in B tier? I think it's like relatively high B tier. Like probably like here-ish. Maybe like...
I think it's better than Alpha.
You think it's better than... I mean, that's fine. I'm cool with that.
I think it's potentially better than Mirage.
Yeah.
Because, well, I think the thing with this deck is that, like, I feel like, given that, a lot of people just don't want to read, right? And especially, like, in a webcam tournament.
Yeah.
In a webcam tournament, no less, like, which a lot of these are, you can't really... You have to, like, actually go pull up the card. And so, like... I don't know. I think it will like stomp early rounds in tournaments really comfy, and that can help like lead to, like, even if it like loses in the later rounds because people actually know how to read, like it can lead to a good amount of tops, if you know what I mean.
Okay,
I think it's like top of B. I think it's top of B.
Okay, that makes sense to me. That totally makes sense to me. I don't think it'll ever go past B, but I think top of B is totally fine. And then finally,
I think it's a card game equivalent of a pub stomper.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And then we do have BloomLord. BloomLord is a deck that I don't actually think is very... It's not super stellar in my opinion. But it got 2 tops at Oceania. It got 1 top? I think it got 1 top. 1 or 2 tops at Oceania. It got 2 tops at PPG. But again, this is one of those decks that as Belfemon gets better and gets more popular, it will suffer like very drastically, because the Belfemon versus BloomLord matchup is so... Belfemon favored, it's not even funny. Like, it kind of just looks like you're bullying somebody, You go, oh, I'm gonna amass this huge board, and I'm ending my turn like the BloomLord, and they go, okay, negate BloomLord attack, okay, rage mode, pop your entire board, okay, Karada, pop the BloomLord, you're on 0 cards, and then slap. Like, it sucks. It's just bad. It's just really bad. And then into ShineGreymon. ShineGreymon, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this, like, it's like fine matchup. Like, you can make this matchup doable. We spent 2 days and we watched you guys know him, Cross AI. He's the One Piece YouTuber, really great, good One Piece player. he played ShineGreymon, or he played BloomLord. He played BloomLord because that was his deck. He wanted to go BloomLord, and he played into somebody named Zonda, who's on the Hoang Zero Discord server. Which, by the way, if you're not in the Hoang Zero Discord server, definitely should join that. But is for 2 days straight, he played Shine versus Bloom, and Bloom, I didn't even take a set, didn't even take a game.
It was really struggling. Let's put it that way.
It was bad, right? And so Bloom wasn't beating Shine like at all. Like it looked very one sided. And the caveat, the little ribbon to put on top of all of this, it was a ShineGreymon deck with 0 BT12 Marcus because he was trying to prove a point about how stupid this deck is even without the BT12 Marcus. So Bloom was losing to no BT12 Marcus Shine. That alone puts into perspective just how weird this deck is into Shine, like, and how not so great it is. And like, yes, I think you have some like really great matchups across the board, but I think overall, if you're losing to Shine and you're losing into Belf, you're probably not going to do super stellar as the format continues to evolve and progress. So I think it's probably like here for me, TBH, maybe one below Secon, but either way. Not super like confident in BloomLord personally. Even I love the deck, but I'm not really confident. Do you want to add anything, Vincent?
Yeah, it has an interesting tool into Shine called Quartz.
Yeah.
In that you can go ahead and stun a bunch of tamers on the side of Shine. The only issue with that is that like, if Shine like understands that you're about to Quartz them,
Yeah.
and they play out a raising, they can simply just Evo like BT12 Shine and just absolutely destroy your your Quartzmon, and now you're like super far behind. But I would say that I think the deck will continue to see some kind of results, but I think it's like you have to sack your matchups.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I really quickly I want to add another thing that a lot of people I don't know if they'll recognize it or respect it. Is EX4 MirageGaogamon. That card kind of surprised all of us in testing because it gave you so much like minus DP power that like clearing out a Quartzmon was really easy. And so I would not be surprised to see that card see more play as the format evolves, and which will indirectly hurt the BloomLord matchup. So I don't know. Like I think you make an argument like it's better than BL's purely off a results standpoint because I just don't think BL's will see very many results. But I think if we're judging it purely from a power perspective, I would say it's probably one below BL's.
Yeah, that sounds like a fairly accurate. I feel like from a pure result standpoint, it might actually be like closer to the top of V because there are the green copers be strong, right?
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you have to like really sack your matchups to do, and like, I think the Hunters matchup isn't stellar either because they have just so much board control.
Yeah, Omnishout kind of goes crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your saving grace really is your matchups into the A tier is not bad.
Yeah, you beat Blue Flare because of Cherrymon, and then BlackWarGreymon you can just swing over it. So
yeah,
you do have some good things going for you. But you have a really you have a terrible Belf matchup. You don't do really well in the Hunters. You don't do well in the Shine. You don't do well into Royal Knights. Like really not well. Oh my god. Gallantmon clears like 3 different cards on your board. It's terrible. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna call it like middle of B. But like if it performs more better than that, like it's so be it. I don't have a lot of faith in that deck, but.
I think the saving grace of it really is the fact that like because of its new support, it can like on curve it can be really really fast, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna out tempo some decks, but like if like on even ground it just loses. But
yeah,
its saving grace is really it's like if you draw the line, it's really fast.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And yeah, so that's our revised BT13 tier list. This is with 2 additional weeks of testing and with all of the regional results that we've had. So thank you for Hayes and Joey for joining me. I know Joey left earlier for work, but thank you both you guys for joining me on this video. Really do appreciate it. And we'll be looking to do more of these I guess mid-season tier list revisions as the format progresses because BT13 lasts for a very long time. This format, I think, lasts for like 5 months or something like that. So we're going to be stuck in this for a long time, which, I mean, at least we're in a format where it's akin to BT8, so it's very diverse. So you at least have something to play like constantly. It's not just, only play Shine and that's it. Like, that's the entire format. Like, no, there's more than Shine. You can play more than Shine. The gap is not that huge. Like, this is not just play BLs or bust. So you have that going for you. So I think it makes sense in that like vein to do like these mid-season tier list revisions, because people results will change and everything like that. But yeah, anything you want to leave off on?
Uh, Not really. I think this looks pretty good, I think.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you're not in the Hoang Zero Discord or you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that. So thanks everyone. Peace out.